are now live on YouTube. When you're ready, would you like to start the meeting?
Thank you, Wendy. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Virtual Planning Committee on 23rd of February 2022. I am your chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg. Based on the decision of the Council to continue virtual meetings until the 11th of May this year, I would like to remind both members and public attending or watching that this council has delegated much of its decision-taking power to our senior officers. We will continue to adhere as closely as possible to the procedural rules detailed in our constitution. In the event of a break in the internet connection, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we are not able to reconnect, we will consider the meeting adjourned and reconvene at a later date. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. Any members of the public can view the agenda by visiting our website at www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. So over to you, Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Wragg, I'll start with you.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor De Sarum.
Present, thanks, Wendy.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
Present, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Present, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Councillor Pook.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Skinner.
Present, Wendy, thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Woodward.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Woodward, was that?
A yes from me.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. We are correct for today's meeting.
Thank you, Wendy. Right. First of all, I'd like to thank members for turning out for the site visit this morning. I think it was useful. This is a difficult one. I don't have the application number in front. Yes, I do. No, I don't. I don't have the application number in front of me.
211436 full.
As Councillor Skinner said, that's the application. I do have it.
Well done, Philip.
Yeah, it's on my other set of papers. Okay, welcome to the meeting. Supporter for the application, Robert Morgan. Also the applicant, Mike Palmer. Now, Chris Rose, over to you just for a brief outline.
Excuse me, Chair.
Chair.
Sorry
Yes.
to butt in. Could I remind you, we still have the processes of the committee, namely the speakers list, the minutes and apologies, etc., to go before we go to, and declarations of interest before we go to the item.
Declarations of interest, but I don't have any minutes. Do I?
Item 2, minutes of the consultative meeting held on the 16th of February.
Oh, I thought that would come up at the next full meeting. Okay, then I'm not sure that I have them. They're not included in
Chair,
in our pack.
Chair.
Yeah. Councillor Chamberlain?
Yeah, do you want me to go through the first sections for you as I have it in front of me?
Yes, okay.
No worries. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Agenda item 1 is obviously the speakers list for today. Meeting can be viewed on page 4. Agenda item 2 is minutes of the consultative meeting held on the 16th of February 2022, pages 5 to 11. If anybody has a comment on these minutes, please raise your electronic hand. If there are no raised hands, I will take it that this is an indication that you are happy that the minutes are noted. I shall just check.
I don't have
I have
one.
one, so it's all right, Chair. I have one hand raised at the moment from Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I haven't seen the minutes of that last meeting,
No.
so
I haven't.
would it be better if they were carried over, Chair, or Vice Chair, sorry?
Yes.
That's perfectly acceptable if members feel they haven't had an opportunity to review them.
Yeah, also, we don't have a full attendance here today, so carry that over. I don't have the same papers that Councillor Chamberlain has, although I've got a running order.
Chair, that's probably,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but that's probably because I post your script to you. Obviously, when it changes, I email it out, but I can't forward you a copy in the post because it won't get to you in time. So that's probably where the
Okay.
confusion arises.
Okay. Right, then, shall I take it back now then? Councillor Chamberlain?
You can do indeed, Chair.
Thank you. Apologies? Have we done that?
Yes, we've got a few apologies. Councillor Bloxham, Councillor Davey, Councillor Howe, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Whibley, Councillor Key and Councillor Coleman.
Thank you. Quite a few then. Declarations of interest, please, Wendy.
Certainly. So I'll start with you, Chair.
No declarations of interest.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Thank you, Wendy. Just to note that this is in my ward, Broadcliffe ward. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
None, thank you.
Councillor De Saran.
Absolutely none, Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard.
None, thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
None, thank you, Wendy.
Councillor Pook.
None, thanks.
Councillor Skinner.
None, thank you.
Councillor Woodward.
None, thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Right, agenda item 4, matters of urgency. There are no matters of urgency. 5, confidential exempt items. There are none. And now we go to the application for determination. That's 21 1436 Paul Minor, Broadcliffe, pages 5 to 21, Park Farm, Farringdon. Right, over to you, Chris, to present your application.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so this follows the site inspection this morning. I'll keep this short because I gave a run through of the application at that site inspection. Yeah. But just to remind members, it was deferred for a site inspection to ascertain the extent of the curtilage to the application site. So members will recall driving up the driveway to the site, and we stood about there. So we stood about here, looked back at the main house, the barn, and then some members walked on the site, and the applicant had kindly marked out the corners of the bungalow. So yeah, the purpose of the site inspection was to ascertain the curtilage, and that's because although there's no planning, no policy support in the local plan for residential development in this location, there is a policy in the Farringdon Neighbourhood Plan, FAR 5, that is related to self and custom build. And that has got a number of criteria as outlined in the report. The key criteria the report talks about is that the policy states that the development must be within the curtilage of the main house. And by curtilage, that means it's the area that's usually around or enclosed in the grounds of the building immediately surrounding the house, and that's used for those daily activities of domestic life. So the sort of things that everybody uses their normal garden for. And so the issue here is, do members feel that this site that they viewed forms part of the curtilage to that main house? You'll see in the report that there's plans there of the curtilage as well. The first plan shows the extent of the dwelling, and there's no curtilage defined. And then we've got a plan on there with a red line that shows what we feel as officers is the curtilage to the property. And then there's aerial photos from 05, 06, 10, 14, 15, 2016, 2019. And the views of officers is that those aerial photos plus what you've seen on site show that the area of land isn't used as what we would perceive to be the curtilage of the dwelling, so lawfully as its garden area and used regularly. That, as I said on site, is rebutted by the applicant, and they've got statutory declarations submitted to say that they have used that area of land for the past 10 years for as part of the curtilage, but the view of officers is that isn't enough evidence on its own, given the photos, to justify that it forms part of the curtilage of the site. The only other thing to mention is we did talk about the size of the building, because the policy in the neighbourhood plan says it should be 100 square metres maximum, and this is 101 square metres. But as I said on site, I don't think that extra square metre in itself would be enough to justify refusal. There's no harm from that extra metre caused. So the issue so it's recommended for refusal by officers, but the judgment here for members is to balance up those aerial photos, what you viewed on site and what the applicant's case is, and make a judgment about whether this falls within the curtilage of the dwelling. If it doesn't fall within the curtilage, then the proposal is contrary to the local plan and neighbourhood plan. If members feel it does fall within the curtilage, then this would form one of the 12 self-contained, self and custom build units that Farringdon Neighbourhood Plan seeks to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Just for clarification, does the lane itself fall within the curtilage?
No, it doesn't.
Thank you. Right. Welcome to the meeting, Mr. Robert Morgan. You have 3 minutes to speak in support.
I start now?
Yes, please do.
And you can all hear me okay, can you?
Yeah,
yes.
bit faint.
Okay,
but,
I haven't got this set up very well. Okay, can you hear me if I speak like that?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, my name is Roger Morgan. Not Robert, as was suggested, but I don't mind. My dad was called Robert. I am Mr. Palmer's direct neighbour, and you can see from your aerial pictures there my property that runs right along the side of Mike Palmer's land, and have been so for 20 years this August. My property is called Woodside Farringdon EX5 2JA, and you can clearly see it just the other side of that roadway there. In general, I am in support of this planning application, as I also support the parish plan. I also have 3 children as well. The parish plan was to allow small-scale homes to be built in the parish to encourage younger people to live in Farringdon and not to have to move away, which I think is a great idea, considering how there's such a housing shortage generally in the UK. Referring to Mr. Palmer's application, I support Mr. Palmer's specific application as it fulfills the parish plan perfectly. I can't think of a better application for this. He is building a modest house for his daughter and her young family. If this sort of development is rejected, I would say to you all, what is the point of the parish plan? It hurts no one, is not overlooked, and allows a young family to stay and work in the Farringdon area. As to curtilage, I have been to many outdoor events at Mr. Palmer's house, including barbecues, bonfires, and all that sort of thing over the years, where the events have taken place and what I thought was the garden. Mr. Palmer has always used this part of his land in question as part of his garden to his main house, and I have always assumed the land in question was the garden to his house. I can concur fully that his statutory declaration concerning this land around his house is the truth. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We have the applicant, Mike Palmer.
Hiya.
Mr. Palmer, hello, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, morning again. Right, thank you for hearing me out with reference to this application, and thank you for taking the time to visit this morning. As you are now aware, there was an omission from the last time the committee considered this application, which was the fact that 2 sworn statutory declarations were not brought to light. These declarations attest to the land being used privately for more than the last 10 years and have now been included for your deliberations. These declarations were sworn under oath at the solicitor's office and submitted to the planners back in October 21, and I believe form a major consideration in this application. If the last remaining hurdle here is the question of curtilage, then this surely clarifies that situation. When the issue of curtilage first came up last year, I took advice from a planning consultant who said that it should be allowed to have these declarations considered under this current application. For reasons I don't understand, this has not happened, or did not happen last time, which is why I asked my ward member to bring it to committee for a decision to be made by you. My daughter's house next door was converted from a barn in 2016 under Class Q planning rules. In 2019, they applied for a studio which fell outside of their domestic curtilage. However, they were allowed to amend their application to include change of use for their entire 0.6 of an acre plot to domestic garden. This was granted. This opportunity has not been afforded to me, and so I believe it needs to be resolved by yourselves, and hope you can see your way clear to approve this application. Just some points on clarity. I'd like to add, we are not asking for this dwelling to be considered as part of the farming enterprise, rather as domestic application under the new 405 rules, which I think has just been made clear. As you saw this morning, farming on the remaining land has temporarily been suspended due to financial problems. It will hopefully recommence with the reintroduction of another beef suckle herd in the coming months, but again, this is separate to the private dwelling and curtilage. And just one last point, which was brought up last time, just to clarify, that picture that shows the steel structure was not anything to do with farming. It was in fact an observation tower for a friend's disabled child, which we were simply having a trial run at mine to see if it worked. That's the photo, yes, that's part of it. So once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Right, over to committee members now. We'll say that there is a neighbouring property and there are children in that family, so it's possible that there might be further applications in the future. I don't know. It's a possibility. And just to say that the two elements of policy FAR 5 states that all criteria, it fails to comply with two parts of the neighbourhood plan. And I did see a judgment a few days ago where a neighbourhood plan was given considerable weight at appeal. So I think, you know, you must bear in mind a lot of work goes into these neighbourhood plans. What's the point of having them if you're not going to adhere to what they say? Right, Councillor Skinner.
Ward member first, probably.
Councillor
Chamberlain.
I don't have that here. But
Chamberlain,
of course.
thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Skinner. It was great. Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer, for this morning, for allowing us to come out and have a look at your property and the site. And it was great for members to be able to stand there and have a look at the area. I think sometimes just actually standing on site puts slightly different perspective on it than seeing some photos. Photos are really good and very helpful. I think that the two issues that we've raised, that has been raised from FAR 5, are the curtilage. Or the curtilage and the size. So if we just take the size, we're looking at 1 square metre over the size that is on FAR 5. I mean, it is such a small, I know we put sizes in there for a reason, but we are talking about 1 square metre. If it was 10 square metres, I could understand because that's quite significant, but we're talking about 1 square metre over their size. The curtilage issue, having seen the statutory declaration now of the curtilage, which has been that area has been included, and listening to the neighbour speak as well today, Roger, and also confirm that area has been used for a garden area and uses for the family. I'm struggling with going against this application to allow the family to stay together, and those were the reasons that the neighbourhood plan was put together, to allow for the younger generation to stay living within the area. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for that family then to have multi-generational living on the site, and the prospect of it coming back in to farming and that in the future as well. So I do support this application, having stood there today and seeing the statutory declaration of the curtilage done, and we are literally 1 metre square over the size, but I'd really like to hear what other committee members have to say after the site visit today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chamberlain. I would say that if this application were to be refused, the applicant could go to appeal, and that in itself would be interesting to see what an inspector say. Councillor Skinner now.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm going to. It was really interesting actually going on the site. We found it eventually, yeah, it was interesting. It obviously lies within its own sort of curtilage of the land. There isn't anybody looks over this, and when we look down through the consultations and we see the parish and town council, when we talk about the Farringdon Parish Neighbourhood Plan, of course, the neighbourhood plan was created by the parish council itself. And when you look down through, you see that the parish council actually support this application in the way that going forward, they actually think that it does actually fit within what they deem to be their neighbourhood plan, and they've got the support. On top of that, we have just heard from Councillor Chamberlain, as a ward member, who's very supportive of this application. And we also have Councillor Rylance, and my Councillor Rylance is not one for backing things just on a willy-nilly. She's actually very much supportive of this. So we've actually got the parish council support. We've got 2 ward members of which they both support. And I'm actually going to move a recommendation against the officer's recommendation of refusal and go to approval for this particular application. One of the things I think fits really well is we're talking about here about whether the delineation of a particular lines about where this particular dwelling sits. From my perspective, when you come down, you could look at harm and you could look at who it oversees or who it may affect. It's going to affect nobody here, absolutely nobody at all. When the neighbour actually speaks up, and you think actually neighbours normally you usually get neighbours can be a little bit anti. I know it can go 50-50. We've got a neighbour who's actually turned up to this meeting, actually very much supportive of what they are. This is community development. Now, I know that you might say that having family members building development for family members isn't a planning consideration. I'm actually going to make sure that through the strategic planning process, I'm going to bring up the issue that actually it should be. I think it's fundamentally important that families are kept together. And we've had applications before in the past that we've overturned on the basis of keeping families together. I think that's a fundamental criteria, that people have the capability and the ability to have land to be able to house their own families, and that they then become looking after one another is something that is quite important. Now, we can argue the case and say one could sell it off or whatever they want to do. We all know those things, but hey, that's life, and that's how life moves on. So the impact of harm here is basically nil. The reasons for what would be a refusal on this, I absolutely understand where the officers have come from, absolutely. And of course, we need to be protecting our environments, and we take applications on a case-by-case basis. But make no mistake, this application is in front of us because Farringdon Parish Council, who've drawn up the neighbourhood plan with the support of the people of the parish of Farringdon, say there's 12 houses that we would like to see what we might call windfall sites come up for local people. And without fitting into some sort of criteria that we create through the planning process, this is about communities and the local community wanting to support local people in their community. that gives it a slightly better advantage than a policy that just has a reasoning of no in most cases. And lots of cases there would be a no. And I fully support some of those reasons. But on an application basis, knowing this application has come forward quite uniquely and has the power and the weight of the neighbourhood plan behind it, it has the support of the two of the ward members, and it has the support of the parish council. No, ladies and gentlemen, committee members, and officers, I actually feel that I'm very supportive of this application, and I'm putting my support for this application against the officer's recommendation of refusal. And I absolutely understand why they've done that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder, please?
Yes, I'll second that. Lawrence.
Yes. You'd like to speak on it, Councillor Lawrence?
I think Councillor Skinner and Councillor Chamberlain have said most of what I wanted to say. I too can understand where the officers are coming from on this, and I don't like going against officers' opinion, but it's such an area, a dubious area as to whether this is part of the curtilage or not, and has been used or hasn't been used. And I think based on the support of the parish council and the ward members, I think that we ought to err on the side of the applicant here and grant him his planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Woodward. Councillor Woodward?
Sorry, I've muted myself. Sorry. Yes, I think Councillor Skinner and Lawrence have covered everything, but just to emphasise that it is the Farringdon Parish Council's own plan, and they've interpreted their own plan. And this is the interpretation they've given to it. So I think we should give weight to that, to the neighbourhood plan and what they think it covers. They might well have used, if they had used words such as the grounds of, then we probably have no issue. It's just a bit of semantics. But I think following the site visit, it seemed that it could well be within the curtilage, and also the evidence given by Roger Morgan was very helpful. So again, I would support going against the officer's recommendation and approve the application.
Thank you. Councillor Desarum.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Like everyone has previously said, it is of concern if you have to go against the officer recommendation, but I can clearly see, having been on the site visit with everyone else, that clearly it does, in my opinion, as everyone else said, lie within the curtilage. And I think the evidence given by the neighbour, Roger Morgan, was very compelling and persuaded me to take this line. And I also feel it will be very good because, as it said, it will allow a family to stay together. And I think that's one of the key points that Councillor Skinner will be taking up with strategic planning. So like everyone else that has so far spoken, I welcome this application, and I think it'll be enormously beneficial for that family. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pook, anything to add?
Only that on site you're able to see clear evidence of the boundary between the domestic land and the farming land, but I just thinking it might be an opportunity to actually get this written down or get this recorded, so we don't have to go through similar things in future on this particular site. And maybe if other sites come in, concentrate on this curtilage side to start off with, because this all come down to the evidence of the curtilage in this one. So I'll support it.
Thank you. I'm sure the officers take note of that. Councillor Gazzard, anything to add?
No, nothing new. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anything to add, Councillor Skinner?
Just a quickie, Madam Chair, and that is that I actually was thinking to myself when we were having a site inspection here, what do we need to do that for? How wrong was I? When we turn out to the site inspection has been really, really useful to see it on the ground. And I don't know who recommended site inspection, but whoever they did, whoever recommended it and seconded it, I'm going to say, don't say
Mike Howe.
It'll be me and Mike Howe. That will be
Mike
Howe.
Oh, okay, that's good. Well, that's good. Well, credit to both. I thought for a minute then it was going to be me, and I figured I didn't do it, did I? I couldn't remember. But whoever did that, really good move that, and it's really welcoming to see this on site, because it's much better than just looking at it on a plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, the only query I've got is in the two earlier planning applications, 2000 and 2001, there was a landscape statement asked for. Did that not show the curtilage of the building then?
Mr. Rose?
No, through your chair. No, so we've never had any, because of the history of this site, there's never been any clearly defined, in planning terms, a red line that has clearly defined that curtilage, which is why we're in this situation that we are, and I hope it will be a bit more clear cut and any other schemes that come forward in Farringdon under FAR 5. So I think it's just the history of this site that means that we haven't had that clearly defined.
Right. No, sorry. Have you finished?
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. No more hands up. So over to you, Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. May I just check with Chris Rose that he is happy he has sufficient and clear enough reasons for the going against officer recommendation?
I do, thank you.
Thank you.
But I would like, obviously, conditions delegated to officers and the ward member if needed.
That was my next request of Councillor Skinner and Councillor Lawrence, whether they would delegate that to the chair, vice chair, and with ward members and officers.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
no problem. Thank you very much. Members, therefore, you now have a recommendation to approve the planning application with the delegation of conditions as just set out. Please, when your name is called, would you indicate whether you are in support of the recommendation to approve, whether you're against the recommendation to approve, or whether you're abstaining from the vote?
Councillor Brown.
Well, as there's been no historic curtilage shown, we've got to go along with the recommendation.
For refusal? Approval?
No, approval, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry. Okay, approval. Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain?
Yeah, agreed approval.
Thank you. Councillor Tesseram?
Support recommendation to approve.
Councillor Gazzard?
Support.
Councillor Lawrence?
Support recommendation.
Councillor Pook?
Support the recommendation to approve.
Councillor Skinner?
Support recommendation to approve.
Councillor Woodward?
Support approval.
Councillor Ragg?
Abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. So that application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, members. That brings our meeting to an end, and I'd like to thank everyone, including members of the public, for their attendance. And members, can I remind you that until the Democratic Services team confirm that the live screening has stopped, you can still be seen and heard, and any comments made may be recorded. Thank you for your attendance today.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.